Yeah, we got three now.
Yes, we're live.
We're live. Okay. I'm just waiting for it to pop up here. All right, everybody. Here we go. Welcome to the latest edition of the Daily Gooner podcast here across the internet and across the pod world. I'm Raphael, joining you from the United States, joined today by Ryan in London. Our third wheel, Sam, should be joining us shortly. New parental duties call. We all understand. Some of us have been there. Some of us are there right now. Ryan, welcome.
Hello, Ref. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. Reeling a little bit. Now, those of you in Arsenal world, especially those of us here in the United States, taken aback in the last hour news that Arsenal have canceled their their brief American tour. They were going to come and play two matches in Florida, in Orlando over the weekend. But it brings us back to a topic that kind of brought our pod to life, and that illuminated our pod for certainly the last year, and that is the return of COVID, which is wreaking havoc. It seems it's in the squad. Ryan, club, I think, took the wise move. They apparently there's COVID among the team members. They can't risk further infection. Um, they've got to
I
get off
know.
to a good start, and this is just another possible obstacle.
It's, yeah, it's just another setback for Mikel Arteta, isn't it?
Hmm.
He just never has a full pre-season. He's been here, what, 18 months? And
Yep.
he's not had a week where he's had the full squad available to him. And it's just, what is it, 24 days until the season starts? And COVID riddled through the squad. Sign-ins aren't signed.
Right.
Squad players aren't back from holiday. It's just a bit of a mess, isn't it?
All right. Well, let's talk about keeping the club together. Obviously, again, they're going to home base. They're going to stay. They're going to stay near London Colney, where they should be. Of course, I'm assuming the next couple of days we'll hear word about rescheduling the matches, new opponents, and they've got to find because they need more competitive matches. Although the next one wasn't scheduled until Sunday. That said, let's pick up with probably the crucial topic of last week's pod. We were looking at the lineup. We're looking at ins and outs, and the real glaring position on the squad, Ryan, was midfield, which is extremely thin. We are 1 week later. It's still extremely thin, but some movement. Albert Lokonga has joined the squad. He's been officially announced. Some Let's talk about what he brings to the squad. I know you've looked at him some debate whether he's a six, he's an eight. He says right now probably his best position is a six. Um, let's begin with this question for you: who does he replace among the current or among last year's set of midfielders, in your opinion?
As in,
Who would you slot him in and say, okay, he's the next so and so?
oh, Partey. If Partey's not playing, he'll play. They are incredibly similar. They both win the ball back high up the pitch. They both have got very good distribution. They're both very athletic. Lokonga could do with a bit more moulding, a bit more. Still so very raw, but given a few years playing at the top level, playing for Arsenal in the Premier League, he is going to be an absolute star. And he comes across really well, very humble. One of the questions was, what can the Arsenal fans expect of you? Da, 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 da. How would you judge yourself? He goes, I don't talk too much. I let the fans do that. And that he just comes across very well. Is uh, just very well to me, and I fell in love with him during his first interview. I was like, this guy, this is what we need in the squad. Just down to earth, ready to rock for us.
Well, also after a year, the last couple of years, and we welcomed Sam in. We knew he was coming. Here he is. But the last couple of years, Sam, and I'll just toss this to you, of players like Guendouzi, players who even going back to like say Nicholas Bentner, going back way back a decade, players who seem entitled to the badge, but and are well compensated for playing for the badge, but they don't really kind of fully appreciate the duty that goes to the badge. That famous Terry Henry line after a loss where he looked at the squad and he goes, "Is the badge too heavy for you? What is wrong with this?" Lakonga is very much cut from a different cloth, it seems.
Yeah, you'd think so. Being captain of Anderlecht at what 21.
Mm.
So for him, he's got the leadership skills. And looking at the players that we've been targeting, it appears that Arteta is trying to bring in leaders to this dressing room and also to the squad as a general rule of thumb. I think with Lokonga, he's going to be giving us a lot in the middle. Reading some quotes from old coaches, everybody's very happy about the way that he's developed. They're saying that he's a late developer. His physicality's just recently come on in the last season. He's tidy. He can do the long passes, short passes, intricate play. Again, what we need in the middle, along with being athletic. So I think give him probably about 2, 3 months grace in terms of adaptation. But in terms of will the badge be too heavy for him, I highly doubt that. I think that he's going to take this badge and just drive with it and really show everybody in England and globally what he's able to do.
All right, and you used a term that we talked about last week on the show: drive. Players with drive, and that's gonna be a theme of this show where we look at other players that Arsenal is eyeing. But Ryan, to finish off with Lokonga, other players, veteran players, people who have seen him were asked to draw parallels with other past players, and names came up like Patrick Vieira and Yaya Toure. It's probably unfair to put this young man's name in the same sentence with those players, but is there any reason to temper expectations about him? I mean, obviously we have to think long term. We're not going to expect that quality of play out of the box, but it seems Arsenal have big plans for this young man.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go as far as to say, well, I mean, you can draw comparisons with the athleticism, the height. He comes in at 6'1", and we both know our biggest midfielder is Thomas Partey at 6 foot with Granit Xhaka. So he does bring those kind of elements to our game, similar to Vieira and Yaya Toure, but he's a 6. Those two were more of a box to box. I'm gonna grab the ball and run past 4 or 5 players and just really bring the team forward. Whereas I think with Lokonga, he can do that, but I think he will pass his way forward.
Okay.
I think he's that type of midfielder, and I don't think we should expect too much from him this coming season, because then we'll be pleasantly surprised when he does kind of blow up.
Okay, and we can look again at his manager's skill at developing players, taking youngsters. We thought, oh, it's too much to ask of Saka at 18, and then suddenly he's playing three positions and extremely well at all of them. Um, Emil Smith Rowe comes in, he holds him. People are like, where is he? He's finally put into the lineup around November, but when he's put in, he's ready and he hits the ground running. I mean, who knows what Lokonga's timetable is, but it does seem that with players of this caliber, of that potential, that the manager is good at getting a lot out of them. Sam, let's move to another target, a name that's been kind of kicked around, that's kind of causing some division among the fans. I'm talking about Manuel Locatelli. He's at Sassuolo in Serie A. He's another priority target, probably the priority target to play next to Thomas Partey, to start next to Thomas Partey in the short term. Seems Arsenal prioritized him over people like Yves Bissouma or Ruben Neves. But this come to a head. Obviously, he grew up in North Italy. He grew up rooting for Juventus. A lot of Juventus players on the Italy squad with whom he played, won the European Cup, have kind of talked him into that. It seems like that is his preference. So a lot of division among the fans are like, should Arsenal be pursuing a player of his caliber who's an Italian, and Italians generally don't leave the country? I like it. I think this shows, we after all the complaints at the beginning of the summer, they said Arsenal needs to show intent. To me, this is targeting a world-class young player and being willing to get into the ring and go toe-to-toe with Juve. Now, whether they win or not, to me, is immaterial. This is exactly the behavior that I want to see from Arsenal going forward.
Yeah, exactly. Unfortunately, the club can't win because if we wasn't going for Locatelli, fans would be like, well, why aren't we? You'd have a clear run at him. ultimately we've turned around and said, okay, we'll put 45 million down. It's there if you want it. Obviously, his preference is to Juventus, which is fair enough because most Italians that's the be all and end all. It used to be Milan, but now it's Juventus. So at the end of the day, if the 30 million plus player swap does go ahead, then fair play to them. They've got their target, what they want. But if not, if there's still twists and turns in this saga, I think that um, we've probably got a good chance of getting him because if Arteta and Edu can speak to him directly and sell this project of what we're going for and say, look, you're going to be a centerpiece of getting this great club back to where it should be. That's a massive thing for players, and also I think he's on what 17,000 a week.
I heard 20,000 euros. So yeah, 17,000 pounds per week. Yeah,
So
even less than that.
So in if that's the case, then with Shaka likely to go off, you can say, well, there's 3/4 of his wages. That's your instant bump. And money does talk to some players, but I think we're going to be waiting until he comes back from holidays, and then things will be a lot clearer. Until then, I think a lot of it's going to be coming out of Italy, and it's, as we know with Italian press, it's going to be toing and froing on an hourly, daily basis. So
Right.
still one to watch out for.
Yeah, and that is very discouraging if you're looking at it as an Arsenal fan. But something we've said, the way the press is structured, at least with the Locatelli story, Arsenal don't talk, Ryan. They don't talk. We'll get to Ben White in a moment, but it just comes to transfer moves. Arsenal does not leak, and it seems that this summer, especially with so much at stake, they're even tighter in keeping a lid on leaks of information. Everything's coming out of Italy, of course. Everything, and we know this from all the Napoli jousts. Going after players that Napoli wanted, the press there is going to be very biased towards Serie A clubs. Seems natural. But as Sam was saying, the word is there's going to be another meeting tomorrow on Wednesday, either Wednesday or Friday, and hopefully we'll get some resolution then. Arsenal needs some resolution because, as we said, and I think Sam brought this up in private groups, Arsenal they need to have a drop dead date. Maybe it's Friday. They need to find somebody to step in. So again, it seems odds are he winds up in Juventus. I mean, it'd be great if we look up on Saturday and hear he's coming to London. But if he doesn't, where does Arsenal turn then? To whom does Arsenal turn then?
I think pursuing your top target is probably the most important thing at the moment where Arsenal are right now. If they feel Locatelli is that man to play in the midfield, to replace Granit Xhaka, to play next to Thomas Partey, then they have to pursue it at all costs. But, as you said, they do need a time and a date where they say, enough's enough. You obviously don't want to sign for us, we'll go somewhere else. And when that time comes, I think they've got a list. We know they've got a list. And I think the top target after Locatelli will be Camavinga. I just have a feeling it's him. It's gone very, very quiet.
Yes.
The president said today they're in discussions with numerous clubs. And if you've noticed recent reports about Camavinga, Arsenal haven't been mentioned. And as you just said, Arsenal don't leak. Even if it is from France, if it's from England, they do not leak. They try not to let it be known it's them that's in discussions. Unnamed Premier League club, which we always know is Arsenal.
It's Arsenal.
Gabriel, Pepe, and the like. So I think Camavinga and Neves will be the two that we see being linked the most. I think Arsenal probably more realistic at getting Neves than Camavinga, but of course Arsenal's pool is probably one of the biggest in the league. So we'll see what happens. I don't think Arsenal have an interest in Houssem Aouar. I just don't believe it. So,
and as you said, if they have the list, if Locatelli's first, Camavinga second, then they're not going to jump down to 3 or 4 just for expediency's sake. They're going to go then for Camavinga just as hard as they've gone for Locatelli.
Yeah, but they also have to realise that the window closes in what,
3 weeks, I
a
think.
month,
A month.
4 weeks. Yeah, so they don't have the time to go hard as they have for Locatelli. So it's if Camavinga says no, I think at that point they're like, okay, cool, we can't waste any more time because they've got so much to do.
Mm-hmm.
They need after Ben White is completed, they still have 3 or 4 or 5 positions to fill, as well as getting what 8, 9 players out the door.
Yeah,
So
and
they
those
they
players are
have no
waiting.
time to waste.
The log jams are willing to be broken. You've mentioned a critical name. I'm going to bring that name to Sam. That is Ben White. I think everybody's expecting. He's on holiday. He's about to wrap up holiday. He had some Instagram photos that appeared to suggest maybe he's wrapping up his holiday a bit early. All indications are now it's a matter of when. As soon as he's back in country, Arsenal will introduce him. Let's talk about him in terms of what he means to the new look. Again, we talked about character. We talked about this last week. You said, you talked about him then as a driver, a player who can move the ball. We'll talk about keeper in a little bit, but it seems that also from a tactical perspective, Mikel Arteta's what he wants are players, certainly from his back line forward, going to his keeper, to everybody in the back line. He wants to make his club as press resistant as possible. This is another player who's really good off the ball, who's really good on the ball, who can help release the attack, speed up the attack. This guy's walking into the lineup, is he not?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not being funny. Although Rob Holding has been a stalwart in that back line, Ben White trumps him 10 times over. Everything that we want Rob Holding to be is in Ben White, essentially. Marco Bielsa will not go hard for a player as much as he did for Ben White. What was it, last year?
Leeds went up to, I think, over 35 million pounds. They tried very, very hard to keep him.
Yeah. And, if a manager of that caliber is that desperate for a player of Ben White's quality, I think that even at around 50 odd million, I still think that we've got ourselves a bargain of a centre back, considering he's English, his ball playing abilities out from the back is exceptional. He's extremely quick. And as Ryan said in many other pods, if he can't see a passing avenue or the other team cuts them avenues off, he'll just come out of defence with the ball and beat that player with his pace and footballing ability. So it gives our back line and the build up for our play a lot of variation from that centre back position. And you notice when we didn't have David Luiz in the back line last season, we looked very bereft of ideas when we're trying to play out from the back. There wasn't that confidence to step out of the back line if passing lanes were cut. And essentially we just recycled right across the back line and end up puffing it long. So if Ben White can come in, step out the back, if the passing lane isn't there, brilliant. If the passing lane is there, he will fizz that pass into where it needs to go. And if it's not there, then he'll look for a long diagonal and he'll be able to execute it as well. So all in all, brilliant signing.
Sam, we saw some flashes of that last year with Gabriel when he was on his match. Like if teams dropped off or they were pressing around him and they were daring him to carry the ball, he had no hesitation about carrying the ball and could take it all the way up to midfield and then feed it forward. It looks like that's kind of Arteta wants that left-footed, right-footed combination with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we said on the pod, since the Saved by the Bellerin days, is that Arteta wants the tandem both sides, because from a centre back, if you're spraying the ball right-footed but to the left, you're expecting your winger to and vice versa, left to right. You're expecting the winger to adjust their body position and essentially control the ball and then try and go again. That split second allows the opposition to drop back into a defensive shape, and you're then essentially trying to break them down, but from a slightly higher position. But if you've got a left foot on the left, right foot on the right, the ball will literally loop round. So still staying in play as well, will loop round. The person hasn't got to adjust their body shape. They just see and feed the ball onto their natural running. And you're away on the counter. So there isn't that opportunity for the opposition to get back and eventually get a defensive block in.
All right, let's stay with the back line, Ryan. Some backup keeper targets or potential number one. I don't want to put a limit on them. Coming to mind, these are homegrown targets: Aaron Ramsdale from Sheffield United, Sam Johnstone, I think from West Brom. Let's look at Ramsdale. He'll be the more expensive target, but going back, Sheffield had a terrible year last year, but the previous season they came up from the Prem. They were very good for a long time, punching way above their weight. He was a big part of that, was he not?
No, because he was at Bournemouth.
Smack me down.
But
that's okay.
But yeah, he's had 2 seasons of not very good defenses in front of him, and I don't care what goalkeeper you are, if you're facing 25 shots a game, you're going to concede a lot of goals. And that happened for most of this last season. Sheffield United were conceding, and I've checked, between 15 and 22 shots per game. And that's a hell of a lot. Arsenal only conceded 7 shots on target per game. So if you put Leno at Sheffield United, as we've seen under Emery, he is prone to conceding a goal. We saw all those 2-2 draws, 3-2 wins, all that kind of stuff, because the defence wasn't doing their job. You put Ramsdale at Arsenal, with his distribution, with his knack of playing out from the back, we'll be a much, much stronger side. And I think that's what Arteta wants, because the whole reason why we played so well towards the end of the FA Cup winning season with Martinez is because he had a good kick on him. He had a good long diagonal. He could play out from the back. He was very confident with his feet. And we've seen with Leno, he's okay with playing out from the back, but he takes unnecessary risks with the passes he plays. He played a hospital pass to Ceballos in the Europa League. He played a hospital pass to Granit Xhaka in against Burnley. Both conceded a goal, but he doesn't get the mistake for it. But that's not here or there. But yeah, Ramsdale will be the more expensive one, mainly because I think he's 22 and he's got 10 years till he hits his prime. And then Johnstone, I think he's coming up from Man United Academy, played for United for a little while. He worked his way up from the bottom to get to where he is now, 28 years old, coming up to the prime. Only 10 million I've seen reported, so that would be a steal and a half if we got that. I think he would push Leno just as much as Ramsdale would.
And how quickly would they push Leno, in your opinion? Could we expect that this year?
I think it would be similar to how Leno pushed Czech when Leno signed. I think it'd be like that. They won't start, but it pushed Leno to the next level, coming to it.
So if Leno doesn't respond to the pressure, then you're looking at a new starting keeper.
Yeah, but I think Leno will respond to it, because you see at the start of last season where Emi had just been sold, Leno stepped up and he was probably our most consistent player for the first 10 games.
All right. In that, let's stay with the back line position that's gone very quiet, and we're debating, because Arsenal have a lot of right backs currently on the squad. It seems that's a logjam they've got to clear. Who's going to stay when it's all over? But they don't really have a clear-cut starter. We know Hector Bellerin's leaving. At some point we assumed some chatter that Arsenal and Inter were going to go to Florida before this whole COVID cancellation. Maybe he would just switch sides sometime at halftime or at the end of the match. Obviously, that's just internet fantasy. But Sam, how it seems Ainsley Maitland-Niles has a market as well. Arsenal still doesn't have a starting right back, do they? Or do they? I don't want to.
If you're going to say starting right back, I'd probably say Callum Chambers is going to be the starting fullback. But as we know, he has got limitations around his pace, and if Arteta wants to mirror the left to the right, then he's just not the player due to the lack of pace, unfortunately. As you say with Ainsley, if he gets his head down and says, "Okay, I'll be right back," he's perfect for that role. It'll save us money in that aspect, but it seems that he's got his heart set on being a central midfielder somewhere. I reckon he'll probably end up at Palace. Um, Cedric, he's, as I said when we signed him, he's nothing more than a backup. He's reliable, but he is a backup. Um, so for me, there's been reports of Max Aaron's been floating around the last couple of days. So for me, he would be my prime target at right back. Um, Ryan and I had a discussion on Twitter with somebody saying that he's not the type of profile Arteta was going for, but this is literally the profile that Arteta wants. He's extremely good going forward. He's got a good end product. He's good on a one-to-one defensive. He's got an ounce of nipping the ball at the appropriate moments. So for me, if I had my choice of signings, he would be number one, and I'd have Chambers as the backup.
And just as critical, and we've discussed this before, he would work much better, say, with Nico Pepe on overlaps and combinations than Hector Bellerin did last year. That seemed like they were both playing the same game, and that didn't mesh very well.
Oh, absolutely, because with Bellerin, you never know whether he's going inside or outside. He literally gives his winger no indication of where he's going. I think if Bellerin's doing an overlap, if the opposition double up, then they'll show Hector inside, and he literally, like a rabbit in headlights, just goes, okay, then we'll go where we want me to go. So Max Aaron's will give us that overlapping, and if that is the case, we'll see a lot better performances from Pepe and Bukayo Saka if he's out on the right hand side.
All right, let's a lot of talk about the back line. Let's move forward, Ryan. Attacking mid, still a glaring need in the midfield. Aside from, do they need another defensive mid? Do they need another box to box? They need a playmaker. They had Martin Odegaard fill that role for a while after his loan. Then he went back to Real Madrid. He's starting for Real Madrid right now. It seems Carlo Ancelotti likes him, but as with Real, there's always it gets complicated. They also want Kylian Mbappe, and in order to pursue him, given that La Liga's put financial restraints on Real on their salary, they, like Barcelona, they have to shed salary. So it suddenly appears that after seeing Martin Odegaard was off the table, he might be back on the table.
Yeah, there was a few reports from Tier 1 Madrid reporters saying that Arsenal want Odegaard on loan again. From my understanding, they want a loan with an option. So that would be handy, because then we can place funds elsewhere. We don't have to spend 60, 70 million on an attacking midfielder yet. But yeah, today a report from, was it AS? Dario AS or someone from Spain saying that Ancelotti and Odegaard had a meeting and it came out positive, and Odegaard wants to stay at Madrid. But I think Arsenal are waiting to find out from Odegaard himself saying, I want to stay at Madrid, before pursuing anyone else. I think they want Maddison, or we know they want Maddison. He's a primary target. But I think they're waiting on what happens with Odegaard. Because for me, Odegaard is more of a facilitator, whereas Maddison is that player that wants to do it by himself. He likes getting on the end of things. He likes scoring goals. Whereas Odegaard will make everyone better. Pepe, Saka, Aubameyang. He gives me Ozil vibes when Ozil was just signed for us. He's a team player. He's not selfish. He will do the dirty work. He will play everyone into the right positions. So for me, I can understand why Arteta and Arsenal want to wait on what Odegaard is doing.
All right, Sam, I'm going to let everybody here on the pod and everybody who listens to us on the pod make them privy to kind of a very tantalizing option you brought up, which is Ryan just mentioned. If Arsenal are pursuing Odegaard on loan, if they get an agreement of a loan with option from Madrid, as he said, that lets them allocate funds elsewhere, you're saying it doesn't preclude Arsenal from pursuing both types of attacking minutes, so going Madison and Odegaard.
Yeah, people will say, "What about Emil Smith Rowe?" From my personal opinion, I don't see Smith Rowe as being a number 10 moving forward. I see him more as a left winger, but of the inside forward variety. So not forward, just off the forward on the narrow side. So with this, I see Odegaard coming in on loan with option and then potentially going out and getting Madison as well because it gives us a lot of options in the middle. It gives us different options for different games. It gives us a lot of tactical flexibility for different types of players. Although thinking about if we were to play a 4-3-3, having Partey sitting and then them two floating, it depends how it's structured in that midfield, but you could have Madison as the highest of the three, Odegaard in the middle because he'll do a bit of both, and Partey sitting at the base. Alternatively, you've got to remember that Odegaard has played literally everywhere across the midfield across his career at one point or another. So he's very adept of being able to play with his back towards goal. He's able to be press resistant. He's able to do the dirty work, as Ryan's already said. So again, it allows Madison to be that free player in as a number 10 if it's in a pivot. Um, there's just so many different options if both were to come. And as I say, if they do both come, some games one may be on the bench to give a different option later on in the game. It could be plausible, but do I see it happening? Probably unlikely.
Okay, but as you said, it lets the manager really match and be proactive and say, I want. We've talked the Emery era. The Emery really kind of was a defensive, and he was reactive, and he wanted to see what is the opposition going to do, and I'm going to try to nullify it. Where this sounds like if you've got all of those different weapons in your arsenal, you can, no pun intended, you can line up and say, okay, I'm going to make you adapt to me, and this is your weakness, and this is the best combination I can put out to exploit that.
Yeah, essentially, and I believe Arteta said, I think it was last season, towards the start of last season, that he wants two number 10s in the team later on down the line. So if we are going to be the dominant team, then you've got two 10s on the pitch that's able to pull teams from left to right, find the gaps in their back line and through the midfield. It gives the opposition a lot of question marks, and it's down to them to find the answers. And if they don't find the answers quickly, you think you could potentially have eight to nine players in and around their box, just really causing them problems. And if Arsenal can get back to the passing football that we had under a prime Wenger, then it'll be game over for a lot of these teams in this league.
Let's go back, Ryan. We haven't talked about any of the matches, obviously the preseason matches and their conditioning matches, but Arsenal took a step forward, even though they got a 2-2 result in their second one. Obviously, they need some work defending set pieces. We'll talk a little bit about that, but I want to talk about the fact, social media. I didn't get to see the match. It's not, but a lot of people did. I think you did. I think Sam did. It seemed that Arsenal's attack was much better. It seemed that Arsenal was creating a lot of chances. Arteta, after the match, was saying he was very pleased with that. He was not pleased with the final product. And again, Aubameyang caught most of the criticism for that. But as a developmental game, as a getting ready game, it seemed that there was more good than bad there.
Yeah, and I think what stood out for me the most was Aubameyang's link-up play. It's looked like it's something he's worked at because his back when he had his back to goal, he brought in players better. He held the ball up better. The ball didn't bounce off him. He was sharp on the turn. He was quick, and he was getting in the right positions. Whether or not he scored them, the rust will fall off eventually. But he was in the positions to score them. So I'd be more worried if he wasn't getting the ball in those positions like last season. There would be games where he had two chances at the most, and he had to take on 5-6 players to score. Whereas now he's missing tap-ins, which is unlike him. But again, two games into pre-season, he's played a maximum of 90 minutes over 2 games. I mean, it will come for him. The attack looked great. The way we pressed, the way we hounded, both fullbacks were high up the pitch. Nuno Tavares obviously scoring, winning the ball back up the pitch. That's what Arteta wants. He wants that suffocation of teams. He doesn't want to give you a minute. Whereas I think he wants a mix, correct me if I'm wrong, of Liverpool's press and City's domination. I don't think he wants to play on the counter like Liverpool do, but I think he wants to dominate teams like City do, but win the ball back as quick as Liverpool do. And if he can get that right with the balance of the teams, I think we'd be very, very dangerous.
Certainly much better to watch. Sam, let's talk about one of the changes he made to the squad. He brought in a new set piece specialist from City. That gentleman's getting a lot of attention this week because after the first 2 matches, because Arsenal have conceded a lot of goals from corners, from set pieces. Is this simply a matter of new man, new ideas, and it's taking a little time to adapt? What's the holding this back at this point?
Well, I believe he's only been in post 2-3 weeks, so to get his full plethora of ideas across, to do that in 2-3 weeks is nigh on impossible. So it's going to be a work in progress. It's going to be one of them ones where it will improve over time. I think a lot of it will be like Arteta with the analysis, is really targeted analysis dependent on the team that we're facing that week. So say, for example, if we're playing Man City, they'll adapt for them. But if we were to play, say, I don't know, Everton with Calvert-Lewin, it'll be a completely different game plan and different tactical coaching regarding set pieces. So I think it's one definitely to keep an eye on, but from week to week it will change. And for pre-season, it's about getting the fundamental basics right. And you got to think in the games that we've conceded from set pieces, we simply haven't. And that's where the work will be in pre-season.
Oh, let's stay with that though, because again, he's got a very good history on both sides of the ball, defending set pieces and attacking set pieces. Wonderful article this week by our friend Art Rocher at Football. Or actually, he's now at the Athletic, who talked about the development that this coach brought to City, where he improved their ability to score. And we know probably going forward, last year, defending set pieces wasn't that big of an issue for Arsenal. We assumed that with more practice at time that'll come, but they really, really struggled, and they've struggled for some time to score off set pieces. And somebody who can raise that level would be a godsend for the squad.
Oh, most definitely. And again, it's just adding another string to the bow for this team, because we know that goal scoring midfielders we've got a lack of, scoring from set pieces, lack of. We were literally relying on Aubameyang to score through open play or penalties, but ultimately the burden needs to be shared across the team now. So we'll be able to hopefully be able to grind out more games, more wins through set pieces. Because sometimes you don't play pretty, but you score a couple from set pieces.
All right, gentlemen, kind of moving to extra time in this pod, though. Let's talk again with who's coming in. Is Locatelli done? It seems like they're going to give that a few more days. Are they going to turn their attention to Camavinga? We'd be remiss if we didn't point out that it seems like Granit Xhaka's tenure at Arsenal has finally come to an end. I know that's a touchy that kind of tugs at you a little bit, Ryan. He was a favorite of yours. Let's sum up his Arsenal career. It seems like he and Arsenal kind of had they ran the same course over their time here. They both had rocky patches and probably caught more abuse than they ever do.
Yeah, Xhaka's time at Arsenal was a mixed bag. I think he was left out high and dry under Wenger, under Emery. playing him in the wrong position, trying him out as a sole defensive midfielder when he's definitely not that. And he finally found a niche under Arteta in January of last year. So it's sad. On his day, he's probably one of the best midfielders in the country. Send me as much abuse as you want. I don't care. I want all the smoke. Granit Xhaka, on his day, is one of the best midfielders in the country. And just the way he plays the ball, the way he holds on to it, the way... It's sad the way it's ended, but we have to move on from the stigma that is we've had for the last 5 years. So, want a fresh start.
All right, Sam, to wrap up again, the clock is starting to tick a bit in the window. It seems like again Arsenal's being patient. They're still pursuing their top targets. It seems that maybe towards the end of this week, we really should start see the wheels start turning. Xhaka going out, perhaps now it's time finally for Bellerin to go out. They've got to find a spot for Willian, or they got to figure out what to do with Willian. Kolasinac is still on the active roster, and we figure Ben White's coming in. Who do you look for next in the incoming queue this week?
Incoming queue, I'd love it to be Locatelli, but I suspect it'll probably be Neves after Ben White.
Ryan, who does the wheel spin to for you?
I think it'll be a surprise. I don't know who, but I've got a feeling it's going to be a big surprise.
Okay. Well, big surprise works for me. Big surprise, good surprise. We know this team is capable of doing that on occasion. And we also know, as we've said over and over and over again, they play it very close to the vest. They've been playing close to the vest. Again, before Ben White popped up, it took a long time. But when he finally popped on the radar, he caught everybody by surprise. Why? Remember, we were saying a few pods ago, why a center back? You know, everybody assumed that they were looking at Brighton for Basuma, and lo and behold, they're looking at Brighton for Ben White. So, you know, who knows what other surprises are lurking? I'm very open to several of them. Gentlemen, any final thoughts on the summer so far? Again, it's all or nothing summer. Still a lot of cards to be played in this game of transfer poker. Where do we leave this, Sam? Do they need to make X number of moves now?
I think in terms of the outgoings, just take what's being offered, get the people out the door, so it speeds things along. I know people complain and say that Arsenal aren't good at selling, as we've said in group chats, that unfortunately due to the volatile nature of Arsenal seasons over the last 4 or 5 years, this current crop of players has got a real stigma attached to them. So big teams aren't going to come into them. You're looking around mid-tables to lower table teams that will potentially look to get them, but it'll have to be on reduced prices because a lot of them are on massive wages. So I think for me, it's just getting the players out the door so that we've got the space to get the new ones in. As soon as they're out the door, I think it's going to be floodgates in terms of incoming.
Okay, one more outgoing. And again, this is a name we should have brought up and didn't bring up because there's so many, it's easy to lose track of one. Ryan, I'm going to give you the final word. What do you think is going to happen with Joe Willock in the next couple of weeks?
I think he's going to go on loan to Newcastle. I think he'll go on loan. From what I understand, it's going to include an option of 30 million, which says to me Arteta doesn't really... I don't know, it just seems a bit weird include an option on him, but there we are. Also, Reece Nelson, there's rumour today that he's in talks with Olympiacos for a loan move, which I would assume comes with a new deal. With Nelson, it's a strange one because surely you're better than playing in Greece. No offence. Surely you're going to want experience in the top leagues. This isn't holiday, mate. Like, you need to nail down a position now. You've been on the scene for 5 years. Come on. Get your ass in gear.
All right. So again, lots of moves hopefully to come. Hope that this COVID hiccup gets dispensed with. Arsenal gets back to the planning and building for this critical new season. We want to thank all of you out in YouTube world, all of you who follow us on the various podcasts for going with us. Join us again as we take you on the journey through the season. We have a lot of new toys that we want to introduce both on our website and here on the pod, and we'll be talking about those in the next few weeks. But after an eventful pod, but it's time to bring this one to a close. So for my colleagues, Sam and Ryan,